Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Happy first Thursday of June. You know what that means? It's Xamarin Community Stand-Up time. I am Maddy Leger coming at you from Cambridge, Massachusetts in the office. You can tell because my lighting is absolutely horrible. So I decided, Thursdays I'm going to start trying to make my way back in. It'll be fun. I don't have a good webcam here, so whatever. I don't look nearly as cool as Dave or Dan, but it's fine. Also, of course, wrapping my Boston Bruins gear. We are in the hockey playoffs. Most of my team members who care about hockey, their teams have been cut out, including Dave and this Blues and John Dick and his Toronto mess over there, the Maple Leafs. I don't know. You guys will have the Kraken eventually, Dan, but whatever.
I'm from Massachusetts, so, like Bruins all the way. Yep, absolutely.
Good. It's been fun. They're a fun team to watch. Poor Dave. You might recall, folks, we've been doing community stand-ups for long enough now, which is horrifying, that years ago, Dave and I made a bet when the Bruins and the Blues were in the playoffs in the final together, that the loser would have to drink a disgusting, a light, cheap beer of choice from the other's hometown, and the Bruins lost. And
so you had to drink
Natty Light.
Natty Light. It was
in Houston. Yeah, the Xamarin Developer Summit. Which is great.
What's hockey? Yes.
Yes, what's hockey is a good question. It's men on skates, but they don't do dancing. They do hitting. We got a Habs fan here. Okay. All right, we'll see. Anyways, yeah, I'm Maddy. I'm here with my fave co-host, not that way, this way, Mr. Dave.
Dave Ortinau, Principal Program Manager for .NET MAUI, SDKs.
Nice. And we have our special guest of the month who I flung this upon yesterday at like 2 p.m. So he's the man.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Dan Roth. I'm a program manager on the ASP.NET team. I work on ASP.NET Core and Blazor. Also, fun fact we realized right before this, Dan is about 200 Twitter followers away from hitting 10,000. So I know he'll never plug himself, but you should follow him because
Can I ask a question about this?
What?
I have a question about this. And his Twitter handle is on screen. So go find him at Dan Roth 27. May I ask what the 27 is for?
I I'm the 27th Dan Roth.
Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
pretty much. I forget when that first hit, where I was looking for a Dan Roth someplace, and they didn't have Dan Roth, and it was the 20. They only had Dan Roth 27, so I took it, and it's just always free. Like no one bothers to take the 27th Dan Roth, so I just went with it. Yeah, it has no additional meaning other than that.
No inversion of 72, like you were born in 72 or anything like that. Which
No, nothing like that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Pretty good. I like it.
I should
That's
make up
why
a
I'm
story.
Maddy
I
Leger
need a
1.
good story.
Because
Like
I'm the
those.
first. So.
Yeah, Maddy is the first. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we have so much stuff today. So obviously we have the Blazor man, the myth, the legend here. So we'll be for sure talking about Maui Blazor and all that. But we have your usual. We're going to go through some blogs. Most of them are actually not community blogs this month because I want to make sure we cover all the stuff that happened at Build. I almost swore that would have been the second time in multiple years, but I didn't. On stream. That would be the second time I swore on stream in multiple years. But I have a bunch of Build recap stuff and then a couple community blogs that caught my eye. Dave has a whole bunch of stuff. He's got some updates on vendors working on Maui, like our community component vendors and third-party frameworks, and his regular Maui update and the PRs and all that. And then we're going to turn it over to Dan to demo whatever he's got brewing over there in sweltering Seattle, which is having their heat wave.
It's 80 degrees. It's just like everything's melting. It's basically on fire. People are passing out in the streets. It's terrible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as always, follow along on our URL list, which is pushing to all of the places now. We're streaming to YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitch, Periscope. I don't know why we continue to stream to Periscope. I don't think we ever have any viewers from there. If you're watching on Periscope, drop a comment so I can be excited. And I have shared my screen.
Well, how would you know if there's anybody on Periscope? Because they're kind of under the surface, right?
Well, so it's on their face, like profile picture in the chat thing, it shows where they're from. So, oh, you're making a submarine joke.
I am making a submarine joke.
No. I need more caffeine. We're off to a great
As
start
you were.
today.
Continue.
As I was. Add to stream. Sweet. Hopefully this works. I have to update my Google Chrome, so I really hope it doesn't kick me out at any point. But we'll see. Here's our URL list today. There's a ton. And the URL list / Xamarin-standups, plural, gives you the list of all the URL lists ever. So very fun. First of all, our good friend Rich Lander on May 25th, also the first day of the Microsoft Build Conference, announced .NET 6 Preview 4 on the blog. There's a bunch, so it's available. There's some info on Build here. Oh my goodness. A lot of people have been downloading it and trying it. I've seen a lot of exciting tweets. There's all the links and stuff. And then this is, if you see my little scroll bar here, this is an incredibly long blog post. So, Rich, I would not say is the most succinct blogger of all time. But that's also because .NET 6 Preview 4 is absolutely packed. So, yeah, check it out. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go through it. Read this blog. It's very fun. The more important part of .NET 6 Preview 4 is written by this guy, David. I don't know him. May or may not be a local celebrity, but
no, don't use that. No.
The .NET MAUI Preview 4, the face of .NET MAUI, I've started to call him. But David Ortinau published his wonderful blog. And Dave, you're going to give some updates, so I'm not going to go too much into this one either. But we did link this demo app that you see here running on WinUI, Android, iOS, and Mac using Mac Catalyst. I mean, look at that. Beautiful. Dave built this by hand, like with .NET MAUI. Like he was like, this is what we're going to do, and did it. And I was like, cool. My apps are text boxes and buttons that are all capital. This is beautiful. But he's got a whole bunch of stuff with, I don't know, you got app actions in here. We have a little bit of this Blazor web view thing, cough, Dan, some of the single project stuff. Of course, .NET Hot Reload and some ecosystem stuff. So check that out. Hot Reload. What is .NET Hot Reload? We have XAML Hot Reload. How could things possibly get any better? Well, you should just ask Dimitri, who is on vacation this week. So maybe don't ask him. But in a couple days, you can ask him, what is this .NET Hot Reload thing? I just read his amazing blog on it because this also came out on the day of build, May 25th. Lots of stuff. And he goes into a deep dive about how they're doing C# Hot Reload for WPF, Windows Forms, .NET MAUI, ASP.NET Core, Blazor on the command line. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things, and more things are coming soon. Using Visual Studio 2019 1611 Preview 1. If that isn't enough numbers to try and remember, that's what you can start using this with, and it's still pretty basic. Right now it's just doing some basic things in your C# code behind, and you have to hit the hotkey to make it happen or whatever. But yeah, it works, and it's pretty cool. And look, Blazor WASM projects. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's some Blazor in there. Yeah.
So very fancy. Of course, everything is going to be best with this Hot Reload stuff in Visual Studio 2022, which previews are coming out imminently. I don't know the date, but at some point soon. And .NET 6, which of course previews are out now, preview 4.
We will hot reload all the things.
I know. I'm so excited. Oh, I still take credit for this whole .NET Hot Reload thing because like a year and a half ago, no, probably 2 years ago now, because it is the summer. I was like, why don't we just have one hot reload that works for everything? People were like, that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. And I was like, you're right. No, that's totally, no.
Hot reload was Maddy's idea. It was
me. And I will never let Dimitri live it down, even though he's done all of the work for it. And I hope he's enjoying his vacation and not listening to me right now, because I'll get an eye-rolling emoji in a text soon enough. Okay, yeah, so Visual Studio 2019 1610 is out, and 1611 Preview 1 is out. 1611 Preview 1, as of today and as of writing and as of everything I know, is the last Visual Studio version, I guess 1611. So that'll go GA at some point, but the next Visual Studio, 1611 is the last Visual Studio 2019 version. Next Visual Studio.
There will still be Visual Studio versions.
Yes.
They're still coming. Yes.
I don't know why I even try and say any of these numbers, because it's just impossible. But the next one is Visual Studio 2022.
There you go. When I first started at Microsoft and people were doing these 15 dot this, that, and the other, and 16s, and I was just like, what is everyone talking about? These numbers mean nothing to me. And then once you get into project code names, or you get into releases of Windows and the names that they use to speak about these things, it's overwhelming. You need we actually have an internal website that has dictionaries for all kinds of acronyms and stuff.
Yeah. And it still doesn't help that much.
We need to build that into the Microsoft Translator app. Is what we need to do.
That's a really good idea. I like that. Yeah, we knew kind of in advance that 1610 and 1611 Preview 1 were roughly going to ship around build, and that .NET 6 Preview 4 was roughly going to ship around build. So there were a lot of conversations that was like, is .NET 6 Preview 4 going to be in 1610 Preview 3, or is it going to be in 1611? And then there were just numbers, and there were a lot of emails, and it was very confusing. But 1611 Preview 1 is where you want to be until Visual Studio 2022 starts coming out. Previews this summer, shipping this fall. Don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it's this fall. But we've stopped kind of gambling on timelines with this world, because no one knows what happens anymore. Things are a little bit crazy. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff in 1610. This is the last major feature release. 1611 is really going to be servicing and for our Xamarin folks, getting you those betas and everything for beta summer's coming up. So WWDC and the next iOS, and of course the next Android has already started their alpha stuff. So check this out. This is by Justin. He's great. He hounds us PMs all the time and says, I have a roadmap I need to update. And then we are like, yeah. And we ignore him. And then we're like, well, we'll help you eventually. And then we keep ignoring him. And then he's like, okay, just get on the phone with me for 20 minutes and I'll fix it. And he is a godsend. So thank him. If you ever see him on the internet, thank him for dealing with me and Dave. And I'm sure Dan is much nicer and much more, much quicker to respond than Dave and I are. But Dave and I are like chickens with our heads cut off sometimes. So finally, if you can't get enough of Dave and Dan, the dynamic duo, the .NET 6 deep dive session is up on demand There were a couple .NET 6 related things. Scott Hunter did like kind of an abbreviated 30-minute .NET 6, what's new and what's coming. There was a panel that Dave and Dan were on that you can go watch. There was a Windows session that they talked a little bit about Maui in. There were a couple different things. Scott Hanselman's developer keynote was hilarious. They filmed it like it was a TV episode, and it was very enjoyable. And they did some hot reload there. But yeah, this is, if you're going to go and dedicate an hour and 20 minutes to one thing, it would be this, in my opinion. And if you missed it, that's okay. You can still go sign up for build, still register, and then you can go in and get the on-demand sessions if you're interested.
Can I just point out, you see that little sliver of an app on that screen there? Like that little sliver? Yes. That is a real Blazor app.
What?
Written by that company Spot. They build software like point of sale solutions for like dry cleaning stores and stuff. And they had an old VV6 app that they wanted to modernize. They did it all in Blazor. And I've got to say, it's the most beautiful dry cleaning app you could possibly imagine. It is amazing. And it's all done in Blazor, C#, works on the web. It's gorgeous. Yes, that's a real thing. That's not a mock-up.
You are a connoisseur of dry cleaner apps. So
I know.
I know that you know
many over the years, and this is my favorite one by far.
I don't go to dry cleaners. I don't understand what that's all about.
We have lockers, and you stick them in a locker, and then they take it, and they bring it back to you. So
that would be amazing. I once had a suit returned to me after maybe 10 years that had been sitting in a dry cleaner. It was like a prom suit that I wore in high school. My mom handed it when she happened to go to the dry cleaner.
Oh my!
That is
if they had only had this app, they could have found me.
Wow!
You're gonna have to wear that suit for like stand-up.
If they're gonna hold on to your clothes for 10 years and say, no, this customer might still need this suit. Right. It might still fit. It might still fit.
Unbelievable.
Dedicated.
Yeah.
Before I close out of this is just like a funny screenshot of Scott that they grabbed right here. It's just like it looks like he's going ooh, even though I'm sure he's in the middle of saying like a normal O vowel somewhere, but it just looks like he's ogling at this.
He wronged somebody.
Beautiful. I know.
And they took that screenshot.
I know. There's so many normal faces people make in talks, but every time people screenshot it, it's always brutal. Okay, last first party blog, and then I have two quick community ones, and then I'll turn it over to Dave for all of his goodness. Rachel, I don't know where her name went. What? Is it like highlighted? Weird. Rachel Kang has been doing a accessible app blog series on the Xamarin blog. And so I think we'll probably try to have her on maybe later this summer to one of the community stand-ups because she's awesome. And she's been on the team for about a year now. And she's kind of doing a lot of the semantic property stuff with Shane Newell for Maui. So this is about screen readers and all that stuff. I think there was a Xamarin Forms 101 I did a long time ago that was like very basic, like here's how to use a screen reader when you're testing your apps. But yeah, she uses like automation properties and stuff so that, your screen reader will read that thing to you instead of just saying image with no description. And so, yeah, that's where the semantic properties come in. So cool. I also believe they're streaming like right now with her and Sweeky. So
yeah, they're doing a Hello World thing.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so go catch that after this, or have them both up. But keep us on because we're obviously more fun. So just kidding. Love you, Sweeky. Love you, Rachel. Don't hit me. Okay, this is one of the two articles I picked out this month. It's by our friend, the first prototype makers. That's the handles everywhere is one of those two things. But this is about using VS Code for M1 Max, iPhones, and Android with Xamarin. So I guess, I don't know if this is .NET MAUI Xamarin or Xamarin, but the thing that I liked about this was how to run things from the terminal.
Yeah, figuring out the MS build command is really what it all comes down to.
Yeah,
and then how to launch, because so many steps happen when you hit that run button. It's going to compile it. It's going to do all the build steps, and then it's going to deploy it and try to put it on the emulator or device after it figures out where that thing is. Right. And then it tries to actually open it and run it. Right.
Right.
And once you get into VS Code, you kind of have to know all those commands.
Yeah, it's
unless you use Comet.
What is that, Dave?
So James Clancy has an extension. You can find it in the marketplace, Comet, for mobile Maui development. And it will work with .NET projects. It will load up your project and find your emulators and simulators. It works with Catalyst as well. It works really, really well. Works best with single project .NET MAUI apps. So it's an option.
Sweet. Easy peasy. Cool. Well, if you're someone who likes to copy pasta MS build commands, this is a great place to do it from. I actually tried some of them and it worked. So I was like, that's nice. And then finally, the reason I chose this one as my other one is because I have so many people asking me about why, like what media player is up to in the Xamarin Community Toolkit. You might know the media element like control got moved out there so we could kind of work on it a little bit quick, like iterate on it more without the Xamarin Forms like release train or whatever. And we've talked about VLC media player type things in Community Standup before. And this one I like, not because it just tells you how to use a VLC media player in your Xamarin Forms app, but also why, which I never really understood. I was just like, that's the thing I use on Linux. But I guess there are certain like file formats and protocols and stuff that, you know, the VLC media player is not the native media player like what we give you in the media element. So there are some cases where you actually do want to use it. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. That makes sense. And then, of course, there's sample code to do it all for you. So I'm like, that's how I like my blogs, copy pastable. And, you know, he talks about play and pause and all that stuff and all the things. So if you have been fighting with the media player or the media element for whatever reason, and you think it might have something to do with the file format or the sample rate or whatever that your video is, check this out. So I'm going to slide out of this. I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'm going to wait for Dave to share his screen so that we can follow along with him.
Oh, it calls this screen one now. All right. Interestingly, regarding VLC, I once did a user group presentation for a day of Xamarin up in Toronto. And perhaps the author of that blog was the presenter for the VLC session, and he wore a orange cone on his head that is the logo through his whole presentation, which is dedication.
That's amazing.
And it was a good presentation too. All right, so I tried to put some things on a slide, and I wanted to go high level this month, because now that bits are shipping and we're saying, hey, go check this out and actually build an app with it, the question then becomes, well, what can I actually, what experiences are working or in various states of working? So this is a top of mind list. I tried in PowerPoint to sort it alphabetically, but that feature is eluding me, and I was going to copy it to Excel, and the presentation was starting, so I didn't do that. So bear with. So what we're doing now is, in terms of UI porting, this is taking renderers and moving them into the handler architecture for Maui. Anything that doesn't get ported will be available. Just, you know, your developer experience will be exactly the same. But some of the controls like collection view and carousel view, what we're seriously considering is their strong value in making those particular controls into handlers. They were recently written, so they are already written as fast renderers. If you remember back to some of the improvements we made around Xamarin Forms 4, which 5 is the latest stable, just to remind everybody. So we may not end up moving some of those things to handlers, in which case that percentage of completeness you see right there will jump drastically, because that's a lot of porting that wouldn't need to happen. We'll just move everything over, change the namespaces, and voila. You can use those controls today regardless, because they are available via shims. So there is the compatibility method in your startup class where you can go do that. If you want to look for examples of how to do that, check the Maui samples repository on the .NET repo. Well, I guess Maui samples is the repo on the .NET org on GitHub. And then you can also check out all of our blogs. It shows this. .NET Hot Reload. So this is the ability to apply changes for your C# changes. You saw several demos at Build. Maddy highlighted them and dropped links to them. So check those out. Where things stand right now for .NET MAUI developers is it works, but you have to currently jump through a bunch of hoops to enable it in specific scenarios. So that's why we're not telling you to go do this and making it something we promote right now in the current build. So look towards Visual Studio 2022 Preview 2 as the release where these new features will start to light up more. And we'll talk more at that time about, and Dimitri will probably be back and can speak to it, exactly what scenarios are being covered at that point. So hard work is happening there. Similarly with Xaml Hot Reload, there are some steps you can take in your CS prods to configure it to work with Android and with WinUI, but there are some other things that were needed in terms of, I believe it was a mono related thing with the interpreter or something like that. Memory serves. There's a lot of work happening there, a lot of moving parts, of course, as you can imagine. It's a complicated thing. So we're looking towards Visual Studio 2022 Preview 2 for that as well. Or just go follow Tim Miller on Twitter, and he'll probably tweet all of his celebrations in progress. He recently showed the live visual tree, I believe, showing native elements. So it will be able to show not only the cross-platform elements, but also the native elements, which if you use the inspector back in the day and you've been missing it, then you'll be very excited to have that. You may have noticed also a GitHub opened issue on Maui to enable a surface layer above everything. So if you're used to getting those adornments in a UWP, WinUI, other platform where you can inspect things directly in the app, you're going to start to see some of those experiences coming to Maui at some point. VS Mac, where do things stand? Can you use VS Mac right now to do .NET 6 things? They're working on implementing that. Good progress internally, but we haven't shipped anything for that yet. So looking to have a good release for Visual Studio 2022 Preview 2, all the twos. Just look for twos. And then that'll be, we're looking forward to that being a really good experience. And then VS Windows, you are probably currently, if you're playing around with this, using 1611 Preview 1. These are the numbers, which is the latest preview I think that we've shipped. However, the next iteration of anything will be coming to the 2022 releases. And I'm pretty sure that all of our versioning is aligned across Mac and Windows, which is going to be super nice so that we don't have to say 10.11s, 8.3, and all those different numbers. Single project. So the ability to have just one project. You don't have to worry about multiple projects, managing NuGets across multiple projects, and all the complexities that come with that. So we're working on improving the experience when it comes to the WinUI projects. If you've installed the templates and tried it, you see that there's 2 additional WinUI projects. We, I think, recently are down to 2 projects. The dog is now barking because somebody's home. I don't know if you can hear the dog. So we're working on collapsing that down to just 1. And so we're working with the WinUI team, and we'll hopefully have that by GA, if not well in advance. And then other things that we're improving for single project are up on the run menu. You'll notice in the latest preview of Visual Studio, you can select the target framework, and then everything is just rolled up into that same menu now, rather than choosing a startup project from the Solution Explorer. This is a new experience, obviously, and so we're working through some things, consolidating all the different options on that menu so that it's a very focused, clear experience. So there will be improvements coming to that as well. Hot Restart, this is the ability to connect your iOS device to your Windows machine and off to the races. And you can do your day-to-day development that way. We're very close to this. I've heard several times, oh, we think we got it. And then they're like, oh, well, it's going to come later. So looking for a future release, perhaps Preview 3 is a good target for us to look forward to seeing that experience. And the main reason that got pushed back beyond what we thought we would deliver is because it became more important to have the VS Mac experience solid for .NET 6. So it's a bit of a trade-off. We're all software developers, right? We have to make some trades and move some things around. So that makes sense, because it's not just unblocking your experiences. We're using these tools, right? And so we need to make sure that we have the tools we need to build the product. Let's see. So that's Hot Restart. Remote iOS Simulator. It's currently in development. If you've tried to use it, you've noticed you get a lot of success, but it doesn't actually go all the way, and then it fails at the end. So they're working on completing that work. In the meantime, I am told that you can use Windows to do your build and run it, but you can look at your simulator on your Mac build host. I did that once upon a time many years ago, but I have 2 machines sitting here, and I'm more than happy to switch back and forth between them. So
yeah,
find somebody who knows this stuff really well, and they'll show you how to make this work.
If you're totally blocked on the iOS, because you're probably hitting issues with it right now if you're using Xamarin as well, because Xcode 12.5 removed one of the components we use to make the iOS remote simulator work.
Thank you.
So we're currently, we're scrambling a little bit. We're trying to, figure out the backup plan, and we're gonna have a solution. We're not gonna just give up on it because it's super important. There are a couple options. One is exactly what Dave said. If you have 2 machines, one is just roll everything back, roll back your Xcode and roll back your VS, which you're gonna have to do a side by side if you want to do Maui stuff in 16.11 or 16 whatever. But yeah, just feel free to tweet me, email me, rage at me, and I'll put you on my list of people that are asking for it to update when we have something that's working. It's like besides getting .NET 6 stuff to work, it is the number 0 thing we're working on right now. So in case you've run into it, sorry, Dave.
No, that's good. And number 0 in Microsoft parlance is the must happen. Yeah, that's the no negotiation.
It's also the ground floor in the UK on their elevators, or their lifts, they call them, which I think is very smart. I like the ground floor being 0 instead of 1. It makes sense.
Somebody wants to travel.
I know.
All right. M1 development. We get asked this quite a bit, and so I thought it would be good to do a little bit of an update on where M1 development stands. So Visual Studio right now, you can use on an M1, and it will use Rosetta under the hood. Rosetta is the technology that takes an x86, x84, emulates it as an ARM64 architecture thing, and works well. So those of you who have M1s, you're probably already doing this. And but you're also looking forward to taking advantage of that M1 to do more. I don't have any update and won't as to when Visual Studio will have full ARM64 support. However, in terms of developing, we do have .NET 6 SDKs with the ARM64 architecture. There are bugs that are being worked through, so don't recommend you to try them just yet. I'm saying that from our perspective, if you're going to be trying to also do mobile and desktop development with our SDKs. And so use x64 for now. What does work today? We have Mac OS, the Cocoa SDK, working with Core CLR and Mono. And Mac Catalyst is not quite there yet, but it is on the way. So we will have this support, I expect, before too long. So we'll keep you updated on that as that progresses. And then Upgrade Assistant. This is the wonderful tool that is out now to help people migrate to the latest .NET. I believe it's been used mostly to get to .NET 5. And Maddy is leading this. Sweeky's working on it. And there's a whole host of other people working on it. Look to have something that you could try to move a Xamarin project to a .NET 6 project sometime around .NET 6 Preview 6. Yep. That'll be very exciting. You can do these things by hand today. I have a guide up on the wiki that shows you the general steps that you need. I've been doing this over and over and over again with our samples to test out functionality to make sure it still works in .NET MAUI. So it's totally doable. Let me get to the right.
As of 2 nights ago, try convert. So the Upgrade Assistant relies on try convert. So you won't have to run try convert or anything. Upgrade Assistant does it all for you. But as of a couple nights ago, Sweeky got it so that try convert didn't say, what is this project? Every time you tried to run it with the Xamarin project.
When it says, what is this project? Does it throw up a Frankenstein's monster picture?
Oh, it should. That's good.
Please. That'd be amazing.
I think the wording was something like, sorry, can't handle this project type, or like totally unrecognized project type. I was like, but she's fixing it and she's great. So we're getting there.
Many of us who've read the CS Proj don't understand it. All right. So I wanted to call attention, since we're doing a quick Maui update, which has now gone long, the roadmap. I have updated the roadmap. So you'll notice that in .NET 6 Preview 5, which is coming out sometime this month. Preview 4 just shipped like a week ago. So this will be good. We're going to try to light up a whole host of new things for everybody. Again, many of these things are already available through the compatibility layer. And so you can have a pretty full-featured experience today already. However, we want to make sure we get as many of these things, Maui-fied, if you will. And then Preview 6 really is kind of the majority of the rest of these things. I'm very excited about borders, corners, and shadows. Oh, my. That's going to be very nice. So there's part of the whole re-architecting of the controls and handlers involves being able to light up some of these features that were much more difficult to do with renderers. And then some things that may already work, but we want to make sure that they do work, are listed down here. So these may get moved up from Preview 7, but you can see where we're getting down to general availability. So keep following that if you want. Yeah.
Home stretch, we're getting near.
Feels very close, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah,
it's good. So we're going to have a great GA and RC. So if you want even more details, why am I all the way down at the bottom? And go to the top. We have the status page. It's available right here. And you can check out exactly where we stand. It gets updated pretty darn regularly. Javier is in here, and probably twice a day, he ends up updating this as PRs move through the pipeline. And so in terms of pages and what you can use and what's complete, views, every single view. And there are a couple here, such as the carousel, where it's clear that we have not started this work yet. And that's because it's already architected as a fast renderer, as I mentioned. And so we may end up just moving this over in .NET 6 and not invest the time in porting this stuff to handlers, because there's not as much value there. But we'll see. So I wanted you to see that. That's the status. That's my status. So how about a couple of what's happening in the community? Maddy did talk about the previews. I wanted to call attention to some of the cool things that I saw come out of this. First of all, we do have the beautiful app. And this is inspired by designs of many different weather apps. But I think it turned out really nicely, and it wasn't just me. So this was Dan and Steve Sanderson, and Alon probably got involved, and all the Maui team at one point got in here to help me fix bugs. So everybody got involved, and the product got better for it. So that was really nice.
But it was mostly
on a weekend. It was mostly days.
He's the artist.
Yeah. So, I used to work in creative companies. So bring what you have to the table, and then fill it in with people who are better at you than everything else. I didn't write the API stuff. If you're looking for the minimal API stuff that we talked about, there is a branch here that integrates the APIs. I have not integrated it here yet because I'm waiting for some of the HTTP and cryptography stuff to be smoother on the mono stuff. So Android, iOS, and Catalyst. As soon as that's there and I feel like that's a good experience, then I'll merge that branch and we'll have a full API integration. So check that out. I also want to call attention to Progress Telerik. We've been working closely with them, or they've been working very closely with us and providing their feedback on their experiences using the Maui architecture, as well as all of our tooling related hiccups and struggles. And they've done a good job giving us that feedback and helping us all make the product better. So thank you to the Progress team. And they have shipped their first control or two. Several buttons and charts and profiles and borders, items, controls. So check that out. And let us know. Let us all know what you think about that. I have not actually had time yet to explore that. So very cool. And then our good friends at Grile or UX Divers have a kit called Grile Kit, which are beautiful, beautiful controls. If you go into the App Store for Google or Apple and look up the Grile Kit sample there, it will blow you away. And so they have made extensive use of Skia Sharp, which is what you see over here on the far right to the edge. And we now have the Microsoft Maui graphics library, which is a cross-platform abstraction on top of the native drawing engines. And so what that enables us to do is you can write one set of drawing instructions and choose later whether you want to use core graphics or whatever the native platform is, or even use Skia Sharp. So it's a very flexible way to do this. Kind of helps to future-proof your code as well, as abstractions all promise that, right? So what you see on the onboarding screen here is the Maui graphics version of it. We're very excited about this because we have an experiment going where we are recreating all of our controls. And by recreating, I simply mean creating drawn versions of the handlers that we already have, and seeing how those perform. And they perform way better in many cases than the native controls. And in some cases, we're actually blending native controls and drawn controls together. All right. A few more things. Dan, are you getting ready over there? Are you getting things warmed up?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Don't tune out, man. It's coming up.
Wake him up.
I'm gonna blow through these.
We're putting Dan to sleep.
I know. I don't want Dan to fall asleep, and
No.
I want to make sure that we get to his stuff soon. Prism, Dan Siegel, has also released the first Prism for Maui. So I know that a lot of developers enjoy using Prism. Check that out. And then there are some things happening on Xamarin Forms. Remember this thing called Xamarin Forms? I know we've all turned our focus and our attention and our love and our hearts towards .NET 6 and .NET MAUI, but let's not neglect Xamarin Forms. So activity has been happening here, ongoing, as you can see. And so we're readying a service release. If you want and you are super eager and or need a build, you can always click the check mark. And you can come down here to CI and you can navigate through to find, I think you click this and then artifacts, boom, artifacts, and then NuGets. This is publicly available. This is, you see, I'm not even signed in, right? This is all publicly available using Azure DevOps. You can grab that NuGet, try it out, and unblock yourself if any of these things are being a pain to you. But we are readying an official service release. I don't have a date as to when that will go out yet, but we're in the works. Community Toolkit, lots of activity over here. Most exciting for me is that Javier has started the .NET MAUI branch. So the Community Toolkit will be coming to .NET MAUI. That is in the works. And I'm even conscripting them to write blog posts about what it takes to move things like custom renderers to .NET MAUI and how to publish a NuGet to .NET MAUI. So there you go. Some of the more exciting things, you can see just how active it has been. This is just the last month, so 32 PRs in flight or merged. That's awesome. That's good activity, all community. So I can honestly claim no responsibility for this whatsoever. I had nothing to do with it. I'm so excited. And then a couple that caught my attention that are new things, I'm not talking about it, but look at all the bug fixes. I mean, a lot of these are bug fixes. So that's awesome. But in terms of new things, Damien contributed his calendar control. He didn't include an image up there, but if we scroll down, you can start to see a calendar. Having built my own calendar control a couple of different times, I can tell you, having a control like this is awesome. And I know some of the vendors, component vendors for Xamarin Forms also contribute those. And there's even some more screenshots and videos. Oh, I hadn't actually tried to play the video. You can upload and embed videos directly into GitHub now. It's so cool. I did it yesterday.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
All right. And then finally, Peter, the media element master himself, has taken the media element and contributed it to WPF. So the community toolkit does have WPF controls and support. And so if you're looking for that elusive media element that you can use on WPF, come on over to the community toolkit, file some issues, and tag Peter. He's very responsive and has continued over the years he has been contributing to this media element work, both in Xamarin Forms and now in the community toolkit. So thank you, Peter, for doing that. All right, Maddy, I am fine. I am ready to look at the Blazor things.
Blaze it. Woo. All right, Dan.
Gonna get hot.
We're gonna get real hot. Look at this. Look at that.
All right. Should I just go? Should we
go. What are you going to show us today, man? This
.NET MAUI and Blazor better together. So yeah, I work on the ASP.NET team. So I work on our modern frameworks for building web apps with .NET. So ASP.NET Core and more recently Blazor. We try to make it really easy to build modern, rich, interactive web applications. Blazor in particular is a client-side web UI framework. It's meant to fill that need where you want to have some rich interactivity in the browser. You want some logic to actually run in the browser on the user's machine. Historically, to do that, you had to write some JavaScript. With modern web standards like WebAssembly and WebSockets, you can now do that with .NET. So end-to-end, front-to-back, .NET full-stack web development. And the web is great, but sometimes you need more than what the web platform offers you. Like sometimes you need like full unfiltered access to the device, to the underlying platform and all of its capabilities. You kind of punch out a little bit of the browser security sandbox. So you need a native app in order to do that. And if you're a web developer, that might be a little intimidating. I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of folks on the call that do web development, that do native development, and it's like, whatever, I can do any of those things, but it is a separate skill set. Fortunately, .NET MAUI and Blazor have teamed together and said, let's make it easy for you to take your existing web UI, your existing Blazor components, and host them in a .NET MAUI application. How does this work? Well, your components actually they're just normal Blazor components. They're still rendering HTML, CSS, any logic is of course written in C# .NET code, but you, instead of running them on a web server or on WebAssembly inside of a browser, you're going to run them in the .NET MAUI app, like in the native .NET process. So they run fast, they're running locally, and they have full access to the underlying platform through normal .NET APIs. Like you want to touch the file system, system IO. You want to open network connections, sockets, feel free. Like you can just use normal .NET APIs to do that. And then they render to an embedded web view control, an embedded browser control in the .NET MAUI app to render their web UI, HTML and CSS. So it's this sort of hybrid approach. It's the best of native and the web all in one application. And that's what we call a .NET MAUI Blazor app. It's this sort of hybrid app pattern. So WebAssembly is not involved. Like you're not running your Blazor components inside the browser control. They're running in the native .NET process. They're just talking to the browser control through a local interrupt channel. If you're familiar with Blazor and you've messed around with the Blazor server model, it's kind of like that, except instead of your code running all the way across the internet on the server, you've just moved it into the process and you're using a little channel instead of a WebSocket to talk to the browser. That's kind of how it works. Let me show you, and hopefully that will become clearer. So I'm going to create a new project. I have Visual Studio 2019, 16.11 preview. Yeah, all the numbers, right, Maddy? All the numbers. Preview 1, the latest Visual Studio preview. Let's just say that. And I'm going to create a MAUI app. So let's filter to MAUI. And there are these two options, right? There's the normal .NET MAUI app where you do XAML and all the cool controls that are being mapped to the native controls of the underlying platform. But then we also offer you a .NET MAUI Blazor app, which is pre-set up. It's still a MAUI app, but it's set up with the ability to host Blazor components. Let's go ahead.
How did you get those? How did you get those projects?
So I installed .NET 6 Preview 4. And I ran the MAUI check tool. So that's the tool that does everything you need to get your box set up to do MAUI development. And that will pull in the templates for both the normal .NET MAUI apps and this hybrid approach, the .NET MAUI Blazor app. That's all I had to do. And then just install Visual Studio. You need the Visual Studio preview, and you should see the templates show up. All right. So let's go ahead and create one. Maui App 2 sounds like a lovely name for this new Maui application. And we'll let Visual Studio create that. Now, when it creates this app, you'll see it looks like a Maui app. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kick off running this on Android, because that takes a second or two to deploy. But while that's deploying, we'll go ahead and look at what's in this application. Oh, I probably did that a little quick. Is it gonna? Yes, restoring packages. All right, there we go. There we go. It's working. All right, so it's a normal Maui application. It's got the current 3 project structure, and like David said, we're working on getting that down to just one beautiful project that does all the things. But for right now, we need these extra projects for the Windows stuff. But let's look at the core Maui project. In the core Maui project, we have our main page.xaml file. Let's open that up. And in here, you see we have this Blazor web view control. This is a built-in .NET MAUI control that we provide. And this is the piece that hosts your Blazor components and renders them to that. Sorry, I got to do that again. Let me try more time. I think I just hit a little too fast before it had a chance to restore. No, what are they doing? What are we doing?
Oh, it's going to your local device. It's not going to your emulator. That might be it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. See, and you'll see I'm more on the website.
It's okay. This is a whole new
when it comes to Maui. All the Xamarin and Maui folks are cringing. Yeah. Okay. So, but let's look at the code while that's getting up and running. So there's our Blazor web view control, and it's pointed at a little bit of HTML. That's what we're going to render initially into that browser control. So normal HTML content, you can see that right here. It's in this www root folder. We have this little app tag. That's where we're going to render our Blazor components to, and it's pulling in the Blazor WebView.js file. That's what's going to allow us to have that local interop channel with our .NET process. Everything's going to run locally on my machine. And then for the component that I want to run, we specify a root component. And I'm here saying that I would like to render this main component that's coming locally from my application. Where does that come from? Well, from a Razor file, of course. That's how you build Blazor components. If you're not familiar with Razor, it's kind of a mixture of HTML and C# all in one file. This is the normal default app component for a Blazor application. It's setting up the router, which can then route requests to different pages. All of the pages live in the pages folder up here. And there you see the normal Blazor counter. Of course, you got to have a counter, right? So this is just HTML mixed with C# for our logic. So no JavaScript required. You just write normal C# code. We've got a button. It's got an on-click handler. Every time the button will get clicked, this is an HTML button. This C# method will get invoked. The field will get incremented, and then it re-renders to the UI. And hopefully that's not working. Yes, great. So here's our .NET MAUI Blazor app. Everything you're seeing here is just like a full screen browser control. We're rendering HTML to that control and being able to reuse our HTML skills, CSS skills from within a native Android application. We've got the counter. We can click the counter. It's got a little fetch data page, a much uglier weather forecast app than what David shows, but we'll fix that in just a second. And of course, we can do Windows too. Let's set the Windows app as the startup project, and we'll get that up and running. And so this will host that same Blazor WebView control, but from within a WinUI native shell. And let's get that building, and there it is. Deploy succeeded. Boom. All right. So same application, same UI logic. Let's get them side by side. There we go. And boom. Now you might wonder, well, okay, that's just HTML. There's nothing really new here that's been enabled other than the fact that it's now running as a native application. But because it's now running as an application, we can touch native functionality. We can do things with the underlying platform that normally the web would not let you do. So as an example, let's go into our homepage component. This is index.razor. It's that main page. When we click on this home tab, that's this content right here. Right now, it just basically has static HTML. But let's add some stuff. So I'm going to add a code block. We're going to add some C# code. Let's add a message field here, and we'll initialize it to something like hello. Okay. And then what I want to do is up above, I'm going to render the value of that message field. right here. This is the Razor syntax way of doing that. This @ symbol says, please render the value of this C# expression right here. So this should render a little header tag. And then let's add a button. And I'm going to add an on-click handler for this button for a method that I haven't written yet, but I'll add it in just a second. Call it getMessage. And what I want is to be able to edit the value that's being displayed in this header to something else. And to do that, I'm going to use an advanced text editor, a really fancy text editor. So let's add our method. So getMessage. And I've got a little snippet here just to make my life easier so I don't bore you with too much typing. But let's add this code for setting up our advanced text editor. There it is. Okay, so let me walk you through what this code is doing. And I think I need a using statement for system.io. Okay, so we're going to create a temp file on the machine. Now this code is going to be Windows specific, so technically I should put a little like, if def for Windows around this component so that this component could still be reused on Mac and so forth and on Android. But for right now, we'll just leave it as it is. We're going to create a temp file. We're going to write to that file just a little message, and then we're going to open it up in our advanced text editor. Oh, wow. And then wait for the text editor to edit, and then read whatever the person typed into that editor and display it on in the browser. Okay, so let's go ahead and rerun our WinUI version of the app. Rebuild, shuffle bits around.
It's thinking. It's like, how am I ever going to run this thing as amazing as Notepad?
That's right. Okay, so remember, this is a browser control. This is basically a web browser, and we're going to click edit, and we just launched a process from the host machine. We just fired up Notepad. That is not something, thank goodness, that web apps can do. You don't want random web apps launching processes on your machine, but we can do that. So let's say hello from .NET MAUI right here, right? We'll save that and close. And then it gets the value out of the file. It's able to read from the file system and bind it to the UI. So you can, the point of this is that you can do anything native that you want to do. You have full access to the underlying device. So that's an example of that. Now, I do have a version of the weather application that David was so kind to design, and I'm going to switch over to that next. Let's look at a slightly more realistic app. So this is Blazor Weather. A Blazor version of the Weather 21 application. If you want to see this code, you can grab it off of my GitHub account. So danroth27/Blazor Weather. That's all the code is there for you to download and try out. Now, this app started out as a web application. You see, we've got the Maui projects, like these three right here. And then we also have this Blazor Weather.server project. And all of these projects are actually referencing this Blazor Weather class library at the top. And this is where all of my Blazor components currently live. So I've got like the home page and all the weather forecast stuff. All my Razor files for defining the weather forecast UI are on this common library, which then is referenced by my web app. You can see the dependency right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and set that as the startup project, and we'll run the web app version first. Okay, so here's the same UI that David did, except this isn't XAML. This is all done with HTML and CSS. It's actually using Tailwind for the CSS framework. But, you can use whatever you want with Blazor. It's just HTML and whatever CSS framework you'd like. We can click on things to see different stats for weather stations, add new weather stations. We can go and look at our favorites and switch to someplace else. Like, let's go check out the weather in Korea, okay? And we can go into the settings and change from imperial units to metric units, and everything just updates. This is a rich, interactive, single-page app style app, but all written with .NET, C#. You didn't have to write any JavaScript in order to get this to work. This is a web application, but I would like this to be a native app. Like, I want to be able to add native functionality to this web application, and we can do that with .NET MAUI. So the same components I can then reference up here. You can see, I think, if I dig around, there's that Blazor Weather project being referenced by our Maui project. And we just use the same components. So if we look at our main page.xaml, that's, again, still pointing to our main component. And then main.razor is just basically rendering the root app component from the Blazor Weather app. So a little indirection there. I think technically you should be able to just point directly to blazorweather.app. I think we had an issue in Preview 4 where I had to do this little bit of redirection. So if you hit that, this trick of putting the component in the local project and then rendering the other component works. That'll all get fixed up in a future preview. But let's see if we can now run this as a native application. Let's set the, let's do WinUI first. And we'll go ahead and run that. And I ran the wrong one. Just did the same thing that so many people have been stumbling on.
Yeah, the WinUI situation, like we're getting there.
I'm sorry.
That's probably the top feedback that I've seen from folks trying Preview 4 is selecting the wrong WinUI project.
I did that on purpose so that you would know not to do that. Don't run the WinUI project, run the WinUI package project. So that now
4x64 or does any CPU work now?
That's a good point.
I think any CPU might work now.
It might work.
Find out.
I don't know. This is how we're doing development. We're just trying things on stream, and then if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, you fix
Works
it.
fine. Works great, David.
Ship it.
Of course it does.
Ship
All
it.
right, so now we have the same app, unchanged. Like the code is unchanged, running as a native WinUI application. All right, so all the same functionality that we saw before works just great. But the cool thing is because it's now running as a native app, we can, of course, do native things. You may have seen with like David's version, the Xaml version of this application, it has that system tray integration. And if we, can I zoom in? Yeah, so you can see the little .NET bot down here. That's being put in the system tray by this application. And if you click on it, it even triggers like native platform notifications. Again, all that happening from Blazor components in a .NET MAUI app. We can go, dig around and find that code. I think it's in like the, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. Where is it? It's in is it main app.razor? I can't remember where it is, David. Where's the tray stuff? Yeah, here we go. So setting up the tray icon. And this is where it's actually setting up the tray service and the notification service for the application. And we could do mobile as well. Let's set this as the startup and we'll run mobile. So if we do this right, we should be able to have one set of UI code that's going to run on desktop. Where's my web? Here's web. Let's pull this guy out. And let's get this guy a little smaller while we wait for the mobile guy to come on.
And you're becoming a pro with the demoing native things because, yeah, filling the compile time with something to talk about. Yeah, pro move.
It's pretty solid.
Let's see. And then Blazor weather. Let's run this one.
Thinking. Oh,
no.
What'd you do?
I don't know. What did I do? I'm still deploying. I think that's
It's okay.
Yeah,
Android,
it's
I think
okay,
if anyone's tried Android.NET 6, the build and deploy times are like, don't quote me on this, but absolutely abysmal right now. So they're getting better. Like we know it's an issue. And obviously, like we've talked about Android build and deploy times for a long time. So there's something we're very cognizant of. Don't worry.
Yeah.
They're going to get
A
better.
lot of optimization work yet to go.
But there it is.
Woo!
Mobile. So this is the mobile view. It's got a nice responsive UI, all done with CSS. Native desktop, native web. Web. And of course, this works on iOS and Catalyst as well. You can run a Mac and on your iOS devices too. So that is a .NET MAUI Blazor app.
That's crazy. And Dave and Dan, there were no custom renderers used for this app, right?
No custom renders.
This is just a single Blazor web view control in a XAML page that's being reused by all these form factors.
And we one of the questions I did see on Reddit was, yeah, but can you use native controls? And I'm like, everything you see here is native. There's no non-native UI.
Let me do that real quick. Actually, I can show that. I think real fast.
Dan, I thought you said you like didn't have any cool demos. You were just like, well, just talk. This is a cool demo. I feel like I just learned how to demo this for the first time.
All right. So we've got our Blazor web view control, which currently is just the content for the entire content page. But we can add some native UI here as well. I have a little snippet because I don't want to risk my XAML skills on camera. So I think this is right.
Man, it's just XML.
Right. So we have a stack layout now, and we've got a fancy schmancy native label that is going to say this is so native, and then our Blazor web view control, and I added a little option to make this fill and expand. Okay, so if I did that right, then we should be able to rerun this.
Oh my goodness. There are a bunch of comments in the chat, lots of questions, but I'll have the chat will live on. So Dan, if you ever want to after this, you can scroll back and answer some of them. And of course, tweet us or post them on GitHub or whatever, and we can answer there too. So
all right, so you see our this is so native. So we got native UI combined with web UI all in the same application. And you can, of course, share state between these two things. They're all using the same like dependency injection container. It's all in the same app. The .NET code is running all in the same process. So this is a very first-class way to compose web UI and native UI together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really powerful for a lot of customers. So I'm excited to see what people do with it.
Me too.
I'm one of those native platform developers that doesn't mind a little CSS and even JavaScript. I'm okay with JavaScript.
There are lots of great dev platforms out there. I'm not against JavaScript either. I think it's more a question of like, where are your skills? Like what's your happy place? Right. If you're mostly fluent with .NET, C#, that's your tool belt, then I think you'll be really happy with like using Blazor for web front end development. It's kind of like, speaking a natural language, I feel like as well. Like my main language is English. I can speak a little bit of Portuguese, like, hello, my name is Dan, and where's the bathroom? And just I could say that, but I'm not fluent in it. Like it's not where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I think it's very similar with development platforms and languages. Some people like to work in their native tongue, so to say.
Yeah, and I that's one of the things I love about working at Microsoft and with y'all is because I feel like we, for the most part, all have that same attitude. What can we do to help developers be successful? And I think the unification of .NET, if I can preach for a moment, does this for a lot of .NET developers, so that if you may have tons of experience with Blazor and .NET, now we have a strong unification of dev tools, build systems, IDE experiences, the editors. In the same solution now, you've got Razor and you've got XAML and you've got C#. And so your whole team could be very diverse in terms of what they are most productive with. And at the end of the day, it's all a .NET application. So pretty hot. And we get to do things like .NET Hot Reload. That's a singular investment that benefits no matter what kind of app you're building.
Yep. Yeah. And it will work with your Blazor Maui hybrid stuff. So you can be hot reloading all over the place. So it's pretty cool.
I think the Maui Hot Reload stuff is expected around preview 6-ish timeframe in VS is when we expect to see that really start to shine. So that'll be really great. You can do a lot of things today with like .NET Watch on the command line and some things in VS, but I think it's really going to come together once we get VS 2022 and all the Hot Reload investments that are coming there.
I get asked a lot by customers today, what should I use today? I've got a project that's kicking off. I want to use Maui, but is it ready? And what we tell everybody is use Xamarin Forms. It is where you're going to be the most productive today. And that's what I did with the weather app. I built that thing, all the screens, I pretty much had it done in just a couple of hours in one afternoon. It's not terribly complicated. There's not a lot of interactivity that I implemented in there. So it looks good, but it's pretty surface, right? But I was able to do that because I used the existing VS, the existing tools, the existing stuff that's much more stable. And then I spent a better part of a morning porting it to .NET MAUI, which was a very straightforward process. It wasn't a lot of effort. And so you can get really, really far today with Xamarin Forms, of course. And then when you're ready to move to MAUI, maybe it's GA, maybe it's shortly after GA, then you can just port your project and your code. And by that time, the upgraded system will probably do everything for you. And I'll make all kinds of promises because I'm not actually working on it. It'll basically, make your app magically .NET 6. So use Xamarin Forms today, use Xamarin today, and then even easier, if you're just building for iOS, just building for Android, use the Xamarin stuff you have today. And that stuff moves straight into .NET 6. Yeah. So it's pretty sweet. We've done a lot of work to make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for hopping in last minute and blowing our minds. This was incredible.
It was awesome.
Folks, again, if your questions didn't get picked up today, like tweet us, put them in the GitHub or wherever, or float them into the internet into the space. It was lovely to see you all, and we'll see you the first Thursday of July, unless that's the holiday Thursday, but I don't think it is. I think the 4th is a Sunday, so I think we're good. I'm not sure. We'll have to check. It'll probably be the first Thursday of July. If not, we'll bump it a week before or a week after. So let us know what you want to see, and we'll see you then. So,
cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everyone.